We're not going to do steps. We're going to raise hands. I'm going to pay attention to who's has their hand up. I'll point to you and probably give you what number you are in the stat hand signal. Of course, that'll change as people talk. So once I've pointed to you, you can put your hand down because I know who you are, and I'm going to point to you in that order. If I have not pointed to you, then please leave your hand up, throw paper at me, something to get my attention so that I can get you onto stat. Are there any formalities you want to go over prior to hand signal respect times? You want me to go and do the
Is everybody comfortable with the circle the way it is? Are you okay back there? You want to be in it?
Okay.
Just okay. Can we actually widen out just a little bit?
Okay.
Where you going? I got space for a chair.
Space here for more chairs. Nobody else is reading class. Reading class.
I'm not a reading class.
You do? Yeah. Because I got to read this
Excuse me, Denny.
Oh, sorry about that.
Just don't have to get into it.
I'll go ahead while I'm talking and finish up with the voting procedure. We touched on it last time, and I'd like to clarify this. Because we have new people and we have people who maybe don't understand it from other times that we do everything by 90% majority. So I'm going to touch on hand signals really quick here. We'll touch on them again in a second. When we're voting on something, this is approve, this is a stand aside, and this is I'm voting against. We're going to count how many people are in the room. I have to have 90% approval for a proposal to pass. So I need you to approve, disapprove, or stand aside. If you do none of the three, you are automatically voting against. That's not my rule, that's math. Does everyone understand that? If you don't understand that, I have a really quick example to explain it. Everyone good? Excellent. So please, one of the three, approve, stand aside, we'll take you out of the total head count, or disapprove. Excellent. You guys understand?
Yeah, 32.
32. Brilliant. 32, we're going to need 29 people, I believe. I'll do the math here in a second to get approval on anything.
Oh, question.
Yes,
Do
please.
facilitators vote?
Oh,
Did you put it in? Yes. I will usually stand aside unless I feel very.
Second quick question.
Please.
10% is the other part of 90%.
Yes.
So 3 people have to vote against. Most many people.
Well,
For it to be.
but we go off 90% approval. So if you have 9 people and 1 person, and you have one person vote against and 1 person not say anything, you're only going to have 8 people vote for, so that's 80% we don't have approval. So yes, we could just do hands down, we could just do hands up, but if we're doing all the hands up and all the hands down, then we have to have 1 of 3, or mathematically it doesn't work. Does that make sense to everybody?
No.
I'm sure I got it.
10% is 10% if everybody's voting. Everybody's voting.
If you decide, then it's no longer 10.
Then that person isn't in the count.
Right.
Correct.
So you'd step it back.
So then there's only 9 people, and then the 8 people can pass it. Does that make sense?
If they take 9 people.
Yeah.
Right.
But it'll be
If someone stands aside.
Everybody's going to vote.
Yeah. Excellent. So did you still have a question? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. From 5 we round up. Yep. So we've got 3 more folks in. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
I think we should expand again. Well, maybe on the other side.
No, we'll find
Do you need 2 chairs? You got it?
Can we get 3 more?
Yeah, 3 more. So just say for the 3 that came in, when we do place the votes, we need 90%, so please make sure you approve, stand aside, or vote against. Excellent. Since we've got that little hand signal warm up, we're going to have, I believe Robert said he was going to do hand signals. Is that correct? Excellent. Robert will be giving us hand signals.
I might forget a couple.
Okay.
Okay, hand signals. If you're like this, that means I feel good, I like what I'm hearing, I agree with the proposal, blah, 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 blah. Yes, right? This means, what?
No, that's good.
Do you
That's good,
understand
right?
that?
That's good.
That means like
It's in character. It's good.
Can we repeat what you're saying?
blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Hands in the middle like that. That means you're not sure, you're warm, you want to hear more, you're not really 100% sure if you want to go with the proposal. And then, so hands down like that. That means you definitely don't like what you're hearing, you don't agree with the proposal, you're against it. And that's that. Stand aside means you're standing aside. Means you don't want to take part in the vote. This is point of information. That means that during the conversation, if you want to add to that exact topic that's happening at that moment, you want to add a date or a time or a place or something of that nature, go like that, and then you can go ahead and jump in and throw that into the conversation, into the topic. You go like that.
Oh, okay, you're just.
Just do
Sorry,
that.
I thought
This is the evil eye. No, this is the point. What is it called?
Point
Point of process. That means that you are the person talking is way off topic, and you're just doing that as a signal to tell the facilitators to help bring the conversation back on course to the discussion. What else is there? This is block. This means that you are against whatever is being talked about. You're completely against the proposal. It's very serious. You feel so serious about it, you might actually leave the movement. So it is suggested to use this sparingly. But yeah, use this if you definitely feel like you're against it. And when this happens, we have to all respect that and discuss what your issue is. What else do you do? This means that in the conversation, if somebody is going on too long, this means basically, we love you, we respect you, we want to hear what you're saying, but just kind of wrap it up so that we can move on into the meeting. This is kind of actually more for, large groups, but it's a sonic signal of emergency. If somebody's having a medical emergency or something serious is happening, you do that. That way people are notified to come and help out. And that is it.
Bravo.
Thank you, Robert.
Very entertaining.
That'll do the feet signals.
So following that, Lisa will be coming up and speaking about respect and kindness. You're good with that?
Hi, everybody. So we usually have a poster up at the poster up that is a visual for everybody during the meeting. And you chime in if I don't remember them all, but I believe it was respect for the group and respect for the individual who's talking and the facilitators. To exhibit kindness to one another and to exhibit just to hold the space, with integrity for Occupy Santa Fe and RGA, and to exercise self-checking, which is if you've talked a lot and other people haven't talked, or if you're just to watch how often you're talking and how long you're talking and whether or not one's repeating oneself. Is there anything else that I forgot that was up there?
No alcohol, no drugs.
No alcohol, no drugs.
No violence.
No violence. Thank you.
Is there no cross-talk?
No crosstalk. Correct. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there newcomers?
So now we're, like we did previously, the last GA, we had a less formal conversation about camp that led to the proposal that we all agreed to on, or not everyone, but by consensus last Wednesday. So we weren't, it was a long discussion, so we weren't able to continue with the general camp discussion that's involved in having by email, but not really having with each other. And So I think we'd just like to open the floor to that kind of discussion and see what surfaces with that. And so if you could raise your hand, we'll try to just, it won't be stacked, it'll be kind of visual stacked to see who's kind of in order.
I think it might help us all to hear about and maybe clarify a little better. Back when the campers requested that autonomy, of course related to, gee, do we have to wait for a GA meeting to get approval for $45 or $41 worth of gas for the tanks when our cutoff is $40 for spending? I mean, there were issues with getting things happening for them and their needs. And I believe that the autonomy had to do with that. And I think what we're having are a lot of issues about a separateness that feels like campers are not engaged in Occupy. So I'm hearing it a lot. So I'm recommending that we maybe start with some of that clarification or redefinition or something about the autonomy.
Please.
I need a little bit of a primer of what's going on too. But before we even get there, can we take a roll call of how many people in this room are campers and how many people are here for the first time?
Campers?
Okay.
Camp.
Or currently camping.
Current camping.
Current
Current camping?
Current camping.
Can I add something in that not a permanent camper and I'll be leaving soon?
Yes. I mean, I think a lot of us are.
It's currently camping.
So the group of people who are consistently there nightly and have put in a lot of effort, unfortunately, we have a representation here tonight, which makes me kind of sad. Do we?
That's not true.
Were you? Oh,
I'm here. He's
sorry, I
here.
didn't
You
see
didn't
that
look
hand.
Can we do another hand thing?
So
For
just
me,
do the
frankly, I'm
hand.
okay with campers in general.
Campers, raise your hand.
Because we don't know everybody.
It's a
Okay.
bird thing. But
No, these folks are here all the time.
8 campers?
8? Yeah.
Thanks.
I just want to make sure they've got, if they need to, the
Yeah.
ability to block something.
Yes. Good.
I mean, there are no proposals on the table. It's just to have a
Actually.
conversation that seems to happen sort of behind the scenes rather than as a group, face to face. So Alita brought up the topic she'd like to start with, and anybody like to add to that? Was anybody here for the? I just had a massage. I can't think.
Everyone's here for the GA where we facilitated.
What did you want to know about Alita?
Kind of like an update. What's
Yeah,
been going on.
what's going
Some
on?
people aren't exactly aware of everything that's going
Who would like to lead the update?
on.
Are you do feel comfortable doing that?
I'm not sure if I could probably do it. I mean, I could try.
Why don't you try? You begin. I'm sure we have people here.
Okay, there's a lot of commotion, there's a lot of conversation going on about the ongoing issues of the site, the occupiers and the campers and the people that are staying in us. And there's a lot of talk of people saying that we should shut the site down. And then people want to keep it up as well. So there's just a lot of debate going on. That's pretty much the best I can say.
I'll do my best. Also, my memory of the conversation is of my own feelings, kind of a mixture, and then I'll be real specific about my own feelings. I had come to a point. And first of all, I don't have a specific direction that I would like us to follow. I'm not in that position, though. I'm not in that place at all. But I have some concerns that the agreements, and other people do too, and this is why I'm sharing them, that the agreements of the GA as a whole, which were an alcohol and drug-free environment, a kind environment, that those agreements, I've heard, and that is my concern, is that I would like to know for sure, and I've heard discussions within meetings that the autonomy of the campers has led to a disagreement with the agreements, which concerns me a great deal because there's certainly more at stake than the campers and there's more at stake than just the occupiers. Now, I may have a wrong impression, but even reading news reports as recently as Wednesday in the Santa Fe Reporter, I wasn't present. I don't even know the reporter, but it spoke of a fight rolling around the ground, which, is not going to blow me away. A fight is a fight, but, under the particular circumstances that it was listed, so that I was not so much concerned that a camp existed, but that a camp was possibly going rogue because of a misunderstanding about agreements. And I firmly believe, personally, so you'll know where I'm coming from, that the 3 agreements that we made originally as a whole group, days before a camp was even envisioned, are the agreements that apply to all and should always apply to all. Now, I'm a drinker. I use drugs. I don't drink now. I don't use drugs at this particular point in my life, but I've done it all. So I do not come from a place of fear. I don't come from a place of abhorrence, because I've done more than most. I'm still here. But I have concerns for something that I am obsessed about, and that is commitment to a movement to change this fucking country. And that goes about every other agreement that we might have. And if kindness had to be set aside to make that happen, then I would set kindness aside. I don't plan to. That's my story. I hope that I can discuss other things that might be relevant later if I have some input. Because I love everybody that's here, including the campers.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that I would just, I hadn't been a camper. I've donated some equipment to the camp, and that's all well and good, but I guess that just sort of to carry on with what's been said, what is the goal of the camp? Obviously, the initial goal of the camp was to get attention, and certainly we did, and as you all know, the original camp at Zuccotti Park has been disbanded as an overnight camp. Yet it's become, if you've been following the material, become even more vital since it stopped being. I was there for a couple of days, and they had their issues too. And so I just would ask that the group decide what is the goal. I mean, for the campers, it's a place. For the movement, it's, what do we call the point of the spear, or the visible component. But I also, I got 2 kids, and I think this may be the last chance we have to save this nation, this planet. Our prosperity is dependent on us being successful. And you're going to hear me say that over and over from this point forward. That is going to be my focus and my argument. So maybe there's some campers that could tell us where they feel they fit in terms of the movements.
All right, if I may take the conch, so to speak.
1 month. You're going to be number 3. Yeah, next.
I would just say that it's the point of the campers is like an inflammation on the body. You're not saying know why it's inflamed, but it's necessary to communicate there's something wrong. And obviously, it's got to the point where those standard procedures, wasn't effective, so that inflammation seems the only way to express the dissatisfaction. So that's got to be my answer.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I hesitate to speak on behalf of all the campers, not even saying anything about speaking on behalf of the Occupy movement as a whole. I think no one has the right to do that. But as a camper myself, I believe, and hopefully people will share this with me, that the campsite is a social experiment. It is a way to experiment with new social relations. It is trying to engender with a concrete, positive example, not just by throwing some critiques on paper, as the old revolutionaries did, but by proposing and showing people a concrete, living example that will try to engender new forms of social relations that not necessarily depend on monetary exchange or on the coercive authority of any authority, but rather on the goodwill and innate decency of all human beings. This is an example and an experiment. Experiments can fail. Experiments can succeed. Different camps have failed, different camps have succeeded. We were in Denver before, and I'll tell you, I'll admit, it's failed. It has failed. Whether because of the cops being brutal, or the lack of organized skill, or the dominance of certain characters, numerous reasons, failed. We were in Boulder, great success. We're here, and let me tell you, this is the best camp by far compared to Denver or Boulder. And to see people be so negative, specifically in the very beginning of this movement, is disappointing. Because you're not allowing for the experiment to show itself. You're not allowing for it to engender. It takes time. And, things get better. And concerning the drug issues as well, I completely respect the GA's decision. But we have to understand, if you guys have been there, you'd know, these people have been there for way longer than we have. It's not like they just came from the moon when Occupy sat there. They were there. They were on the streets, living every day, doing their thing. They have hard stories, difficult stories, not easy to deal with. We would like to call on maybe psychiatrists, psychologists, anyone who wants to come and help, please do. But just to say that, these guys, they're just causing problems, they're addicted. Yeah, they're addicts. They're not criminals. They're not people who are out there to be bad. They're people who have suffered and have had issues. And we, as an Occupy camp, in my opinion, have done them great and have done a service, offered food, offered shelter, offered anything we could, and we call on more help. And that's my opinion.
Jake, please take one. Would you here?
So I've been at Occupy Center for a month, and I'm Wayne. I am virtually the only female there most of the time consistently, so there are a lot of challenges with that, but overall, I would say that I don't feel unsafe or anything. As far as that goes, but I'm also kind of life experience-wise, so I think that's important to be part of the Occupy movement. You kind of do need some experience and some wisdom. I'm really glad that other campers have kind of similar Occupy sites. That gives the GA a better understanding of what's going on. I think something else that's important to recognize about the Occupy movement is it's not just political. It's being dealt with in a very political way a lot of the times, and that's one aspect of it. There's a lot of consciousness shifting happening around the world. This Occupy movement is around the world. This is not just political, but that's like the main face it's showing right now. I think it's going to evolve into other levels beyond politics, and I think a lot of that comes down to caring for the earth and caring for each other, not just out of love, but also out of survival. Like, that's important for survival for us as human beings or whatever being you are on the earth right now. And in that same note, I think the common theme that keeps running through the GA versus campers, I don't think versus is appropriate. It needs to be more of a synergistic relationship. Like, we need each other, and we need to figure out how to make it work in a functional way. And I think one of the biggest challenges with making it work functionally is communication and having campers that can articulate the GA properly. On a side note, the alcohol problem that seems to be part of the drama that happens a lot in the camp, really, I can vouch for the past month. A lot of it does come from outside the camp most of the time. So I just want to make that point.
Anything else? Did you want to say anything? I don't know. Jay, did you still want to take a picture?
All right.
Okay, thank you. You were next.
Yeah, this is me. In regard to what's been said about the necessity of the camp, I would really encourage a lot of individuals here to spend more time there. And I understand that it's not a situation in which individuals I understand that sometimes it might feel like a social environment to which a lot of people here might not be used. And that, in my opinion, is a very good thing. That with all of these camps that we've spent time in, I spent more time speaking with individuals who live without homes for extended periods of times, for years, who have drug addictions, who are alcoholics, and that's really positive because they're not just people that I walk by in the street anymore. They become human beings, and they have as much a right to be a part of this movement as anybody else does, because we all are part of the 99%. These individuals who have these problems, these are symptoms of structural issues. It's not that they themselves are bad people, and they're seeking to take advantage of the occupying campus. And we're going to have to overcome the social alienation that classism and the economic structure has set upon us, because these people are not going to go away immediately in the happenstance of the new political system. They're going to be a part of it, and they have to become a part of it. And it's much better to recognize them as individuals who are potential contributors, who aren't leeches on society, rather than regarding them as simply problems that are much better put underneath the rug. So what's most important, I think, is that encourage much more interaction between campers and individuals who come to the meetings, just come to the meetings. I mean, they're not scary people. They're individuals, and they're totally willing to talk to you if you want to talk to them.
So my name's Rebecca, and I'm really dedicated to the Occupy movement. I have to say this is the first time that I've heard that the discrepancies against the GA agreements have been mostly from transients outside. Let me first say that I think camp is really important, especially as a gathering point, as a social experiment. I also don't think this movement depends on camps to survive, and I think we've seen that as well. My personal concern here comes with what happens, and let me preface this with, I work in the media, I understand the media's propensity to showcase conflict. They're always going to want to do that. My concern is when we're giving them so much fodder that that's the only representation of Occupy. I don't want to see every article be about conflicts within camp or conflict between camp and those that go to meetings. If it's true that there really is an agreement and an adherence to GA agreements within camp, then to me the conversation becomes, okay, well, how do we work collectively to manage, to deal with, to support those that aren't in agreement? We don't want to close the door, but we don't want that. Instead of the story being written about some drunken person that's brawling in Occupy Santa Fe occupation site, it's about how occupiers are trying to support addiction and change the paradigm that we're working with. I'm not sure. I think that an appropriate direction for this conversation to move in is so that campers understand what autonomy they do and do not have in relation to the rest of what GA wants to bestow on them, and I'm absolutely in agreement there needs to be more communication. But I think for me the big issue is about how if you're telling me this conflict doesn't exist, fine, but how do we create a new image for the movement that we want here locally?
I'm Scott. I don't really have any hard and fast solutions to the situation. I will say that I have perceived a separation. I'm not really involved in the camp. I've been in many camps like it, but in this case I haven't been involved really. I have gone down, have kind of hung out there a little bit after GA meetings and when it first came up. One thing I thought was really telling to me is that last week after the GA, I went into the kitchen just to sort of hang out a little bit, and I was talking to someone who is, I know to be plugged in there pretty well and a good person, whose name I won't mention, but he refers to people who go to the GA as cows, because he said we hang out, we spend a lot of time in there whining, and I just sort of laughed it off, but then I thought, well, I haven't seen this person at a GA either, so how can you really know? And so, I mean, my interest is mostly in communications and the planning actions and informing each other. I don't fault him, but I'll say that I think it's a choice. You know, we can choose to hang out in the kitchen or hang out around the fire, and they can choose that campers that don't go to GAs can choose to come to GA and find out what's going on in the brain of the movement. I don't think either side is right or wrong, and I just noticed that. And I'll also say that I would like to see the social experiment succeed, but in order for that to do that, there has to be some agreements and some safeguards to ensure that it won't get dragged down by a lot of drug addiction and alcoholism. Again, I don't have any hard and fast solutions to that. I just want to put that out there. And I'll finally say I'm going to have to leave a little early, so when I get up and leave, it's not because I'm angry. I just have somewhere else I got to go. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Today I have an important point. I think it's critically important to understand that drug addictions have nothing to do with the individual. I mean, it seems like an individual.
Sorry. Hey, wait a minute. Just pay attention to the
Yeah.
gentleman who's speaking.
Should we move the circle again? It seems there's
Yeah.
a number of people on the outside, and we benefit from moving out again.
I'd agree.
But perhaps on that side as well.
Let them move
There's
this.
two couches, but we have to.
Yeah, we're
No vote is done 5 times already. Okay. Point of information question.
That's
It's
not
such
a
a-
point of information, then.
But it's
If it's a
important to our-
question, it's not, we know
If
that.
it's not, is it point of information? Or,
Then I'll make it a point of information.
okay, you want to be on staff?
I'll make it a point of
Okay,
information.
you lead our staff?
Yeah,
Over to.
shall we start a statement stack?
Let's do you. We have 2 over here.
Yeah.
Okay. There.
Okay. Are we finished moving around?
If I could just finish that point.
Yeah.
People, they're being called cows because people don't realize how enormously domesticated we get. It takes 20 years to domesticate us to adapt to this very twisted system. And it's not really natural to us. So these addictions are a symptom of how unnatural the system is to us. They're not individual problems. They're problems of how unnatural the system is to our bodies. It takes an enormous amount of stress to be addicted to these substances. So if they're intaking these substances, because the alternative is even more stressful. You see, we have to get out of this mindset that it's somehow an individual problem of addiction. These are disease symptoms.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go through these 3 and then come to you because they haven't had a chance to speak. Okay? So to you.
So, but just to make a note, we're trying to gather people, select people who have not spoken before. So if you have spoken, let's move so others can speak as well.
Okay. So we have this
Doesn't mean
gentleman.
you can't speak
This
again,
gentleman.
just be
Yeah, I'm
mindful.
going to go, and then, Edison, did you? Okay. You want to be on? Okay. You'll be on through these 3. Okay. You
Okay.
Sir.
My name's Elliot, and I just wanted to support what's being said about the social experiment dimension of the Occupy movement. And I think that it's, in my experience, it's the first time that I, as a comfortable middle-class person, have been in a movement where I'm outside of a very comfortable environment some of the time. And I'm in contact with people who are not familiar to me from my secluded circumstance. There's an article which I recommend by a woman named Judith Butler, who teaches comparative literature at Berkeley. This was a talk she gave in Venice on September 10th, exactly 1 week before the Occupy started in New York City. And it's called The Body in Politics. You can find it under Judith Butler, The Body in Politics. And she has a history of a lot of publications, a lot of them dealing with sexual identity issues, so on. But what she argues there, and you have to read it, but this is what's going on now. And of course, she was talking mainly about Javier and Madrid, those experiences. But it's eerie, if you in terms of she was describing what we're involved in right now, and that part of our experiment is that we are placing our bodies into the circumstance. And that's why it was just really fortunate that amplification wasn't allowed in New York, because the mic check was invented. So we have to embody speech instead of sitting there listening to somebody talk at us. And whereas we do actions, we're placing our bodies in circumstances where they're vulnerable, and maybe possibly circumstances where we won't have complete control over our bodies. And so I think that we should remember that dimension. And I just want to speak to the nobility of this experiment and the incredible discomfort.
Thank you, sir. Please.
I'm Jeff. I haven't been down for lengthy times, but I've been down fairly regularly to the camp. I have a great deal of respect, particularly for the way the kitchen is run very efficiently, the way people get food. It really seems to be well organized, and it's exemplary. And also, like many of the people I've met down there, most of them don't feel that it's a threat all the time at the camp, at least that I've picked up. On the other hand, yesterday I ran across a woman, and she was trying to bring a drug to an alcoholic in the camp so that he wouldn't OD, but he was drinking that day and had passed out. And she was spending her whole life trying to keep this guy from either freezing to death or something like that. And I just wondered, it seemed like a person who wants to join Occupy somehow shouldn't have to spend all their time trying to keep one individual, from going under. So I wonder what's the balance between trying to keep the camp and the really good things about it and not getting totally into being a social worker for one or two people to try to keep them alive. And I don't know what that balance is, but maybe there's some parameters for that.
Okay. I'm Tanya, and I'm really happy to see Wings and Jade here, and these young fellows that have been traveling around. I have had lots of interactions with people both at the camp and people that are more exclusively engaged in the GA, and with people that do both. And I can see both sides. I mean, the other day, frankly, I was pretty pissed off that our security team was drunk off their asses. I was really pissed off. And I am okay with the fact that some people drink, myself included, that some people use dope or use other things when they're impacting themselves. But it becomes a much more dangerous situation when you are impacting so many people. That being said, I think that a lot more people here would do good by themselves and by our movement to be present a lot more. To be present there in that cold place and understand that these people are holding the space and it is freaking cold out there. And the reason why we are not there every single night is because it is freaking uncomfortable. And we have choices. They have choices too. Their choices are less comfortable than the ones that we're making. We need to all put effort in. I'd love to see more campers coming and joining us. I'm so happy to see you here, Wings. I'm so happy to see, the woman that's been holding the space here. Because we all need to understand we really are safe. That being said, I've been there when somebody pulled the knife when my child was there, and somebody else's child that I had brought to camp, and I know how to deal with this kind of situation. I've been trained professionally. However, I am concerned about the image that family will have from now on. I, in the car on the way home, discussed with them. Mental illness is a very challenging thing, and it's very sad. However, there was a knife pulled in front of my 12-year-old. It's rough. It's rough. If more of us were there, more of us were participating, and if more people felt like they could go across and talk to each other, maybe things would work out a little better. I am concerned that the bitching and moaning goes both ways. I hear it from both sides. And, most of these people are my friends. whether they're spending the night in the cold or whether they're spending the night in their warm beds. Okay. I said my two.
So I'm going to run over staff again really quick. So we're about 8 deep now. So we have you. You two still want to be on staff? Yes. Excellent. We have Kate. We have, you've gone once already. Okay. Guthrie, you're coming up after these two. Yeah. Okay, this is deeper than I can do, so we're going to form a staff now. So if we can clear up this part of the room right here, we're going to have staff, and if I can have those people stand or leave some chairs.
Well, but then we'll curve around.
Right. So we can use this area. So if you gentlemen can maybe move this direction.
On either side.
Yeah.
Oh, use the hallway.
Okay.
Use the hallway.
But then so if we can bring it around the back of these stairs here. Is everyone still included in the right. Good. How are you? No, don't need to change circle. Just if you were sitting there, you're not in staff, please move going into open seats. If you were in staff, and I'll try to sort your routes really quick to where you were. So where did you go? Let me get everybody else. So then for the Guthrie, I had two gentlemen that were sitting here, so maybe you and gentlemen next letter. So if you could just and then and then the rest of your new staff. Okay. So then again, if everyone could just give their name before they come and try to move to the point and keep it under 2 minutes.
Okay, some of us have been around this conversation before about the disease of addiction. And we know it to be a terminal disease. And we know it to be a progressive disease. And we know that some people are really caught up in the gotta use all the time part of that disease. And they're at tremendous risk to themselves and to others in most situations that we call social. Most of them don't really have a clue that they're there doing what they're doing. We forgive them that sometimes. Other times they cross boundaries. So we have tried to encourage those who have to work with folks in camp that show up loaded or that get loaded in camp to find those boundaries, establish those guidelines that say, okay, that's a little too much, this has grown into unsafety. And in establishing some of those boundaries before it got shot down because certain of the campers had to have certain people allowed to be drunk in camp and didn't want to hear about all that and certainly didn't want to cross any guidelines of throwing anybody out for any of it, and started allowing the people back in that we had already established as unsafe in camp. That included after that, knives being drawn, clubs being wielded, bullets almost thrown into the fire 3 times in a row, and that was after she was sent away before because of an assault that had occurred. Peeing in the grass. The mayor doesn't want us to pee in the grass. So, we have people still pissing in the grass at night. So things like this still come back around, and how we establish and maintain boundaries. We love and we have compassion for all those who suffer from any disease. There is no quick fix to it. There is no one social worker conversation with an addictive person who is unwilling or not ready or too under the influence to be able to find wellness now. We need to maintain safety for the people who visit. I have brought people myself to camp who went away heartily offended by what they saw. Just about every time I go down there, they're dealing with one more drunken issue. Repeat drunken issues. And one more little side note. And this is just a suggestion what I've said about getting some guidelines, guidelines that say, okay, that's a little too much. That's flagrant. That's way past the abuse limits. One more thing. We have a responsibility in our own hearts, each of us, to move forward as we need to and be engaged as we feel is appropriate. But I really, really think we need to consider the Occupy movement being established and getting on a roll here in this country is already behind with the rest of the revolution and the establishment of the stability of the people of the nations. We're looking at the same situations here that are going on in Rome. Oh, really? Spain? Take your pick. Take your pick. Pick any European country right now. That Euro thing being yanked is now making waves to our own economy. Are we going to have organized camps? Are we going to have safe camps? There are going to be a lot of people evicted. There are going to be a lot of people out here that are really freaked out. There's a whole mental health issue around being out instead of being under roof. I spent 13 years homeless. I didn't use drugs, alcohol, or steal, but you get a little squirrely. You know, you learn how to maintain and keep your boundaries. You know, they could do it a whole book full of the mental health of being homeless. Point is, we need to be ready for this as a group. It's way more important than this dicker and bicker and shit that's been going on.
Yes.
You know? Way more important.
Thank you. So I hate to interrupt again, but we're about to have a concert start downstairs.
Oh,
so if
boy.
I can everybody move into the auditorium. We'll go to the stories behind us so that we can continue to hear each other speak. If you remember where you were in SAC, and please bring a chair, a black chair with you as well.
Oh, bring a chair?
Bring chairs.
Anybody good?
That is your move play. That's gonna be wild. One apple does not know.
Sir, rock and roll.
Alright, so you tap
Oh, by the way, hey Jeff. Hey Jeff. I still want to talk about fluoridation. Okay. So how will it go on?
Uh-oh. Oh, that kind of fucks you up. Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Available. So there's that one there, which is kind of precarious because there are people walking on it. There's one on the other side over there. Okay. Watch.
So once everybody's seated, we're going to get another head count. We have another half hour before our proposed end time. So at this point, I'd really like to invite people into that. Try to take about 2 minutes, try to come to the point. Yeah, if you're good with order, awesome. I understand if it's very exciting to be up here. I get excited every time. I'm gonna try to call this conversation at 1:15 so that we can knock out the rest of the GA meeting very quickly. So without further ado, if we can get the next person in stat, please continue the conversation.
My name's Guthrie. This movement is very important for me. When it came along, I was so excited. I'm trying to do what I can, and I spend some time, two nights a week, say, camping out down there. I see the problems that people are talking about, and when I'm trying to get it in my own sense of is the camp important. And when people come to donate, they say thank you, and what do you think of Occupy? Oh, I'm so glad it's happening. Do you think it's important that this is here, and they say, oh yes, you have to be someplace. Heard that over and over again, and people have, quite a few people have come through and say, we have the best, most organized, most peaceful camp that we've seen. So this is a social experiment. Not only is camp, this is a social experiment. You know, we're I use the word anarchy. You know, we're trying to, each person in a non-hierarchical way, think for themselves. So, what can I do if you're really in favor of this movement? What can I do to put this movement forward? Now, perhaps the best thing to do is to close the camp down. And I think if we did that in a proactive way, that would be a neat thing. Suddenly, it's gone, it's cleaned up, and it's not okay. If the camp loses the support, so there's a delicate balance now between the responsible campers and the others. If the balance tips and there's a split, it's not going to be good. It's going to be a deterioration. You know, the negative energy will kind of win out in the camp, and that's not what we want. So I think it's very important for the camp. I'm trying to do everything I can. I think, you know, it might be helpful to propose in a very direct way that I think the camp should be shut down. Maybe that's what we're discussing here. So we have a general agreement, consensus on what we're going to do. Other things, I'm not sure that they're helpful. Expressing your discouragement is probably best done in private with another person and not in social setting.
Next on stack.
Thank you. So I think it's important for us to think strategically what the encampment is actually doing. I think for the people who it's probably most important for are the homeless who are there. They're the ones who are taking. I mean, they're actually occupying. These homeless people, they've created some home in this space. So I think that's important. And I think even if the Occupy Santa Fe decides to cease the encampment, I hope that people continue to occupy the parks. I think this will be meaningful to people. I don't think that the encampment or the occupation necessarily has to have it has to be an end to means anyway. I think it can just be. I'm sorry. Could you stop recording? Sorry about that. I think it can just be like a pure expression of itself, an end in itself. But I think we also have to recognize that it takes a tremendous amount of time and energy to do this. I think so we have to consider, do we want to devote our time and our energy to what we think of as problems in the camp when we could be working on other things. But most of our conversations, to me, kind of discuss, the difficulties of the camp. Do we need the camp in this space? Is the camp actually what's putting us forward? Is what's putting the movement forward? I do think that the physicalization or the embodiment of dissent or the building of we can see, we can feel an antagonistic movement is important. So I think we'll have to figure out how to continue that in another way. Maybe that's this. And the final thing I'd like to say is I think if we're concerned about an image, of selling an image, especially to the media, I think we'll never get ahead. This is very much a movement that's against the status quo, and the media is very much the organ of this society that maintains the status quo. So we won't get ahead if we're always trying to look good for the media. I think we'll have to turn our back on the media, and then we'll have to, at some point, get rid of the media. So.
Next on stack, please. Hi there, my name is Ramsey, and I'll try and keep this brief. But I'll start by saying I also agree that this is a demonstration in both senses of the word. It's both a protest and an exemplification in the physical that you can come and interact with, contribute to, modify. But that being said, here's what and also I'll preface another thing. In my perfect world, you'll be able to do what you choose to your own body. If it is not, sometimes we inevitably harm other people just by consuming and being organisms. But if it's not at direct harm to somebody else, you can do what you please to yourself in any place, in any time. Ideally, public intoxication, in my opinion, wouldn't even be a crime. Just that's anyways. This is what I see as a problem right here. Being in the camp and seeing a white billboard or a whiteboard with what I like are called practices, and there are practices that are listed on that whiteboard that aren't adhered to in the camp. And the problem with that isn't incongruity only, but perhaps these practices were established, and I'm not trying to propose a proposal, but I'm just saying that our rules, we shouldn't be afraid of them evolving accordingly to things that we learn are no longer, if now we realize, well, you know what, it's either impossible or unethical to kick people out who are drunk and high, then we can modify the practices we have explicitly listed for everybody. That shouldn't be a fear, that those sorts of evolutions should be embraced, and they can re-evolve. They can continue to change. This is another thing I'd just like to end on, is that the campers are the ones who physically deal with the people in the vicinity of the dangerous people, and whether they're dangerous, that's a subjective thing too. But the people in the physical vicinity of these people that we either want to kick out or figure out how to deal with, they are in danger, and they end up receiving the brunt of responsibility. Last night, I stayed up longer than I should have, sort of in pseudo-security, trying to keep people who were intoxicated from hurting themselves. They didn't danger me. I could have gone to my tent and told them, see, this is an independent world. You've done this to yourself. But I stayed there and helped them, and that's my choice. We can't have, and if we're going to talk about autonomy, or I agree with this purely. I haven't been able to even really read these last days. I'm kind of sick, and formulating thoughts has been difficult, but so that's why I'm sort of stumbling. But I completely forgot what I was saying. Yes, exactly. Well, no. If the people in the camp can make decisions without first addressing the GA, which is a necessity. Sometimes you can't wait till Monday, Wednesday, or Friday at 6 p.m. to make decisions. It's just impossible sometimes. So maybe even often, most of the time. But the people in the camp can decide for themselves if they feel in danger from these people, and in that case, they can protect them. And we also shouldn't forget that there are, so far, there have been steps taken to accommodate people who are intoxicated and endangering themselves. Sometimes in carpool, very, very drunk and high people who can't even, they will hurt themselves if they sleep out tonight here. And we carpool them to shelters. If they don't agree, there's a step of sequences that is taken in each specific situation, and I think that's the best way to handle things, is specifically, uniquely to each situation. I think I'm forgetting something, but I'm just saying that we can change the rules. And one more thing, sorry. Also, in bowing down to the face of this camp is you said someone said spearhead or whatever. It's the face sort of the movement, as is the blog of the well-kept blog and the web presence and the sort of publicity. Publicity is both in the physical and in the internet and what Fox News and other people put on the TV and the media systems. So, in the same way that we negotiate typos and complete wrong, harmful or just unsuccessful things in the internet. I'm sorry, this is just elaborate, but I'm just saying we shouldn't be afraid to kick people out. We should also not necessarily from the get-go kick people out just because they're toxic.
I'm going to jump over the temperature read here. So we have three options here. We can extend our time. We can make it 2 minutes long. At this point, we should take this push to 7:30. We can limit the amount any individual can talk, or we can let people come up and talk as long as they want, but then we limit the number of people who can talk. So the three choices: extend time so everyone can talk as long as they want, give a time limit so that everybody can talk, or not extend time, not give a time limit, and just get through the few people that we can and staff. So the first one, extend time. Can I get a temperature read on that?
Extend the time of the GA.
Just extend the time of the GA, let everybody talk all they need.
It's just extend the time of
So
the
the
GA
next,
by 15 minutes.
15 minutes out of the proposal?
Another 15. Would you like to extend it another?
We have 15 minutes left, so are we going to choose to extend GA by another 15-minute increments so that we can continue the conversation?
I have to ask a point. There was a talk about going on to other issues at a certain point. So is that what you're saying, that we're going to limit this and then go on and try to get some work done? Or
that's not what we are saying. That's what
we're
we want to decide.
Yes.
As a
so I'm asking that.
You did. So do you want to extend the GA by 15 minutes? That's the first thing.
How long is in this conversation?
That's the next thing. So we're going to extend by 15 minutes. Okay. This conversation gets another 15 minutes, or 2 minutes each. 1 minute each.
Temperature
check. Come on,
2 minutes. It takes 2 minutes.
Work up.
2 minutes
per person.
2 minutes per person. When your 2 minutes hits, I'm going to do this, and this means I need you to wrap it up and let everyone else talk.
You can be had for a time. Time. Go ahead. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Everybody's got 2 minutes.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, let's not ask individually.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, so I know there are different kinds of privilege that we all need to be aware of. And I was raised very poor, so I understand how it feels to look at people who have and who have not. And I think that that's an issue that we need to sort of really be aware of, those of us who are. Sure.
So, are we comfortable with filming? We need you to temperature and check on this because she wants to film anyways.
In the point of information, I was at a media a couple weeks. We talked about independent media and needing more filming, not necessarily posting, but having documentation.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already done a consensus post 3 weeks ago to film these GAs. I'm filming it right now.
Okay.
That already passed consensus.
That is
filmed at all. So that's it.
Who here wants to be filmed?
Who here does?
No, it's a decision that was already made, it sounds like. Let's propose it.
Let's see the dues.
Well, I think
I wasn't here.
You're going to be filmed.
The decision that was made. I think that's a decision that's being made for an entire population that may or may not have been at that GA. I think people have a right to say, I don't want to be filmed.
How about if that's actually not filmed?
He's filming for the video stream so that people see the
If you do not want to be filmed when you come up here, please say, I do not want to be filmed. Okay? So we take personal responsibility for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Right? Do you want to move on or do you want to deal with the filming? Okay.
And I suggest posting a sign that says filming is taking place before the GA each time, if that is going to happen. I would rather not be filmed, but whatever. There are ways of addressing problems in societies.
Sorry, let's turn the camera on. Everybody's uncomfortable.